believe that so far you're still tracking with us. You're not missing. Listen, we're talking about kingdom interpretations of the things that we say. So far, we have looked at what a kairos is. We've looked at whether it starts, where it ends, what you need to do about it. We are now beginning to look at the reality of capacity. What does it take to function within that kairos? And so far, we've discussed three issues. Three issues that come from a big term called capacity. What is the capacity we need to operate in this environment? So there's a kairos, there is a capacity required, but what is that capacity? We've defined the capacity. We're looking at the three other dynamics of the capacity. That you must have capacity mentally, physically, and materially. So far, I hope you're tracking, because this is crucial to where we need to go next.
Today we continue talking about physically, and physically here comes from the issue of capacity, where we are saying there are three things that determine how to increase your capacity: mentally, physically, and materially.
Yes.
Now take us on physically.
Physically. Now
Yes.
remember, your mental state determines what you'll be willing to attempt. So if you have this limited belief about how God has spoken about the power to create wealth, if you have a limited belief that God is actually working with you on this, if you have a limited belief that it can happen where you are, your physical actions will be very limited.
So we have to look at our environment,
Yes.
and say that this God is not limited.
Exactly.
And when he speaks a word, it's not for a specific geographical location.
Yes.
It's for where we are.
Yes.
And why are we talking like this? Because as TCC, we are all over the globe.
Yeah.
There are people in different nations, and all these
Yeah.
people are saying the same thing. God has given me the power to create wealth. He
There
has
you are.
opened the nation.
Yes.
Which nation? The one you're in.
Exactly.
The one you're in.
Yeah, and therefore now your physical actions has to do with what are your skill sets, what are your abilities, what can you do within your environment in line with what you have heard. Because for God to get you to hear something, it means there's something you can do about it. But you can't do anything if you're limited in believing. You'll be surprised.
I think most of the time when you look at us,
Yes.
we are always looking at I can't.
Yes.
There's nothing I can do.
Yes.
What I know doesn't seem to go with the word.
Yes.
Because what I know seems to be so little, so small, so insignificant based on the word that I'm hearing.
Yes.
And maybe God is telling you, listen, that's what I'm looking
Yes.
for. Because I want you to be in a place
Yes.
where you do not say it is your power.
There you go.
So do not look at yourself and limit by saying, I can't because I don't have. These things looks like it cannot attract any power to create wealth.
Exactly. Because where you are today is equal to what you've been able to accomplish so far.
So far, yes.
So this new belief, this new reality God speaks to you, is supposed to awaken capacities in you that you may never have used.
Please say that again.
That's a reality. Not even being aware that you do have them, or there could be things you've given up on, or things you've been convinced to be wrong. Let me tell you, sadly, is that in many religious circles, we have damaged people's abilities because they did not fit into our structure. We have fought people's natural abilities because they didn't fit our religious arrangement. If you go into a religious structure that completely believes that women must cover their heads with scarves, cover this, cover that, if you're in fashion and design, it dies.
Wow.
It just
I didn't
dies.
look at it from that
Yeah,
perspective.
it dies.
That yes, that person will never express themselves
Yes.
because who am I making hair for?
Yes.
Or the hair is supposed to be covered.
Exactly.
So what am I saying I'm in
So
hair?
imagine how
what
many
about
people.
fashion?
What about the beauticians there? What about the hairdressers there?
Wow.
What about, look at what can happen in that space.
Wow.
If you're in a place where they believe music is noise.
So is there somebody who is in this religious environment
Yes.
who feels like all I want is that beauty, putting makeup on
Yes.
people? But this place does not allow makeup.
And you've been taught that it is evil.
Evil.
Now, if that process is connected to your producing wealth, imagine.
Wow. Guys, we have to know that in this season, when you talk
Yes.
about skill sets, and there's something in you that is burning,
Exactly.
and like God is telling you there's something in you
Yes.
that you've never even seen.
Absolutely.
I want to bring it out in
Yes.
this season
Yes.
because that's what will attract power for you.
You are an entrepreneur, but you've been convinced that serving God is being an usher. Being in the team around the man of God. What happens to you? It dies.
I think that's why you'll hear us saying, even the men of God have to work.
Absolutely.
Do something. Because if you look at the Bible, we talked that before, that even in the olden days,
Yes.
they were engaged in trade.
Absolutely.
And maybe you need to just
Yeah.
highlight
Listen,
a bit of that.
every Levite and every Pharisee and every rabbi had a trade. Jesus had one. By now you know he was a contractor. It's a principle.
Yes.
It's a principle, meaning, how will I, who is teaching you the word, have an environment to prove the word I am teaching you?
So I don't teach you something, tell you, you go do it, then come and tell me if it worked. No, I'm also in the same field.
I lead
when
by
you come
showing
and tell
you.
me in Babylon, this is how they do things, I'm telling you, I'm in the same Babylon and I'm doing it
Absolutely.
different. We're in the same thing.
Absolutely. And then this is now what I'm about to say might not rub very well, but it's a principle. The tithe and the offering cannot produce wealth.
It's to take care of that.
It's to take care of the priest to free him to produce wealth. Just like anybody else who has a resource environment. Why? Because the tithe and the offering is not enough, man of God, to take care of you and the people you've been called to take care of.
Because
and that's
they're
why
people.
we'll always have this debate with the world angry with us, because we seem to be focusing only on ourselves and not on others. Yet we all know that even that income is static. It
So,
is not
can I say,
settled.
Can I say something here? The man of God has a team around. For
Yes.
example, let's say the worship leader. When you now say the tithe and offering is to take care of the worship leader also.
Yes.
Why? Because you want to release the worship leader also
To function.
to manifest
Yes.
creating of wealth.
And even to go as far as produce him,
Yes.
so that that income is not for the church. That income is for him, so that he can handle worship with no worries.
And that is why when it comes to working
Yes.
in the church, there are people who will be like, I don't want. Because once you go in there, you depend on tithe and offering,
And that
which
means,
might not come to you.
And can we be honest, tithe and offering many times depends on the mood of the people. So it is not
And
the
the
way
belief.
God accomplished us to live.
Yeah.
God accomplished us. That is an obligation that people choose to respond with. It is not a law. Can we agree?
So when people say there is a tithe and offering in a ministry,
Yes.
this tithe and offering should also take care of the head usher who is also
Yes.
full-time in this place, what we call full-time.
Yes.
This person being taken care of is so that they can also be in a place where they are released to be able to also go out and say, wait, I
Exactly.
want to do, as I do this, I also want to come to a place of creating wealth.
And let's raise the standard.
Wow.
If the ministry is big enough to have the people who are working in the ministry, notice the term working. Not volunteering, working in the ministry, it must produce enough for them to live well and be comfortable, so they can love what they're doing.
Can we say that again? To live well.
Well
Not to survive.
and comfortable, not to survive. You cannot both, listen people, you cannot both be working for the most powerful entity in the earth and living by faith.
Meaning when you're working in church, people should be admiring you.
Exactly.
Because you're working and saying, listen, I'm in a place where God has placed us in a place where we are changing the mentality of the people.
Exactly.
As they change and they give, that giving should also flow to them.
Absolutely.
People who are in the environment.
Otherwise, the ministry better involve itself in economies that can produce for those people.
Remember,
Or
we're talking about
Or even invest in
Yeah.
those people so that they can grow materially.
everyone must grow.
Yes.
Everybody must grow.
That, for us, is the reality of TCC.
Everybody must grow.
Everybody must grow, and there should be no boundaries or limits on what that is.
Remember, we are talking about capacity, and
Yes.
we're saying even the person who is leading worship,
Yes.
the person who is heading the ushers, the person who is in the Sunday school, whatever you want to call it in your ministry,
Yes.
they must increase. They must live well. They must experience this God
Yes.
who says, listen, I'm opening the nations
Absolutely.
for you. Even them, they
Yes.
must come to a place of saying, I have experienced it.
Listen,
I have experienced
if they're
that.
handling children's church, they are raising the next generation.
Oh.
How well should they be compensated? Otherwise, that's why their things don't take on if you can't handle.
I think there's something here we need maybe to mention before we leave this issue of physical, because we're still on physically.
Yes.
Where I use physically, where are you
Yes.
located?
Yeah.
There are many people who could be working in a ministry,
Mhm.
but the minute they hear that there's an airline that has opened up the opportunities, they'll run there.
Yeah.
Meaning they
That's a
prefer
better deal.
there. That's a better deal than here.
Yeah.
That should change. The people in the ministry should be paid better, live better, and
Yeah.
should be approved that what thing you people are teaching,
Yes.
these people have already experienced.
Absolutely.
They should be the first ones even to
Absolutely.
experience.
And that should be a reality that if, listen, even the prodigal